Yamunatira vanachari Sankirtana ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunata Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So it is heavy snow today. I must conclude the prasada must be really amazing here. Otherwise, why everyone would come? In this 7-8 inches of snow. It is certainly a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. Today's verse is very appropriate. But you all must be very determined and very blessed by Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna to have some determination to weather through this winter weather in Detroit. So, we've been talking in this 3rd chapter entitled Karma Yoga. And anyone care to offer what is the central theme of this chapter? What is the principal point Krishna is making in this chapter?
Do your duty, don't expect the result, and you're not the doer. Modes are doing action.
So Arjuna opened this chapter with that question. Am I supposed to renounce and do nothing, or am I supposed to work? Arjuna was confused by Krishna's statement in the 2nd chapter about how he should keep abominable activities far away. So Krishna has been telling in this chapter that one should work in a detached manner. One should work, but work detached to the result. And why? Because when one does so, one purifies. And what does one purify of? What are we trying to cleanse by working in a detached manner?
The false envy, false ego.
Okay, the impurities of the heart. What else are we trying to... When we work detached, what is our reluctance to detach? Why don't we want to so readily detach from the fruits of our work?
We are thinking that we are doing it.
So we think we are the doer. And thinking we are the doer, that leads to?
Attachment.
Attachment to what? Krishna?
Fruits.
Our material attachments. How many of us have material attachments? So Krishna is speaking how to purify of those material attachments. And he has been saying that if you work in a detached manner, one will purify those material desires. And because one will ultimately, he'll explain in the next chapter and the 5th chapter, he'll acquire knowledge. Knowledge of what? Who am I? And who is the real doer? Who is Krishna? Right? So in the 27th verse, Krishna spoke this very famous verse that don't think you are the doer. Krishna is saying the spirit soul bewildered by the influence of false ego thinks himself to be the doers that are in actuality carried out by the 3 modes of nature. This is the ego-shattering statement. We are not doing anything. It is the modes of nature that is doing. Right? So, the result of that, Krishna says in the next verse, one who is in knowledge of this does not engage in sense gratification. Meaning one detaches from the material desires. Right? So, Krishna says, but one who does not, one who's bewildered by the modes, they become fully engaged in material activities. This is the 29th verse. Right? And one should not unsettle them. So, one who has this knowledge of who is the real doer, who is the Supreme Lord, will naturally detach from the fruits of such work. But until we have such knowledge, we think, I am the doer. So by practicing, this is the section of Bhagavad Gita, the Nishkam Karma Yoga, which means doing work detached from the fruit. Nishkam. No fruits. This is what manifests. This purification of these material desires. So then Krishna said in the 30th verse, and this is kind of the summary of this whole chapter, this verse, he says, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Means do your duty. But why should Arjuna do his duty? Because Krishna wants him to. That is the ultimate level. That is bhakti. So Krishna says here, with full knowledge of me. Full knowledge of Krishna means we are at the bhakti level. So this part in Prabhupada talks about the consciousness that one should follow without concern for one's own benefit. Meaning with no desire. That is a very high platform to reach. But it can be reached when one has faith that the instructions Krishna is giving, Krishna has only one goal for Arjuna in giving him instructions. What is the goal of Krishna in advising, in giving counsel to Arjuna?
Ultimate peace and happiness.
To give him the greatest thing he can give. To give the greatest gift he can give. Now, if Arjuna has faith in that statement, then when Krishna says, you fight without lethargy, Arjuna, without hesitation, would fight. Right? Without hesitation. Because he has faith that Krishna's instruction would only be good for me. Well, all of Krishna's instructions are good for us. When he makes a statement like this, sometimes we have some hesitation, some doubts. But we should understand, Krishna, being our ever well-wisher, only gives us instruction that is good for us, that is best for us. And so thus he is saying, in full knowledge of me, you surrender. But that surrender is not so easy. Right? So now Krishna in the 31st verse then speaks, what is the result of such work when one works that way? Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive activities. One becomes free, means liberated. Means no more influences of birth, death, old age, disease, adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidaivika. One finds that peace and happiness. So that is the fruit. If there is not some great fruit at the end, we won't do it. So Krishna is saying, detach these material fruits. And by doing so, one will obtain the greatest experience of bhakti, eventually. But then the next verse says, but those who disregard the teachings and do not follow them are considered to be bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. So we have been thinking all along that material sense desires and material attachments is the path of perfection. Right? Acquire more wealth, acquire more fame, acquire more power, acquire. And that will lead to happiness. But Krishna is saying here, if you disregard this concept of detached work, what happens? You're ruined in your endeavor for perfection. The goal of the materialist is good. The same. Happiness and peace. But Krishna is saying the means are not going to work. And we have proof. It's never worked. In the history of mankind, humankind, it's never worked. So this detachment from the fruits is the fundamental principle of this chapter. And Krishna has been explaining over and over again why, how. Remember in the beginning of the chapter, everything comes from Krishna. Remember, he gave the verses of how the food grains come from the rains, which come from the yagyas, which please the devata. Yagyas come from prescribed duties come from the Vedas, and the Vedas come from Krishna. Everything has been tying back to we must do yagya, we must sacrifice. Otherwise we are a thief. We came into this world with nothing, and we're going to leave this world with nothing. So everything in between those 2 points, we are borrowing, using someone's resources. Those are Krishna's. So he says in that 30th verse, with no claim or proprietorship. Don't think you're the owner. Don't think you're the doer. And when you think this way, that I'm not the doer, Krishna in the material nature is the doer. Krishna is my protector. Everything I do, I shall do as an offering to him. Then one becomes free from the bondage of fruitive activities. So, now in the 33rd verse, the question may come that why doesn't one follow? Right? Why doesn't one follow these activities? This advice? I wonder, right? Why not? So Krishna says here, even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. For everyone follows the nature he's acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? So Krishna is explaining that based on our interactions with the modes since time immemorial, for millions of lifetimes, we have acquired so many attachments, so many desires. Anybody can write down on a piece of paper all of their desires? Just try it one day. Take 1 hour and just start writing all the desires in your mind. Will you ever get to the end of them? How many varieties of desires we have. I want to eat this thing, I want to eat that thing, I want to wear this type of clothes, I want to go to this place and that place and this, I want to have this vehicle and this home, and I want this child to do this for me, and I want my spouse to do that, and the neighbors not to talk to me, and the boss to do that, and this project. Ever ending. So many desires. And they come from our interaction with the modes of nature. Right? So in some way, we see we're almost forced to act according to our nature. Right? Anybody was born with no desires? So we came into this world with so many desires in the mind. The mind is a reservoir of desires. So then, aren't we stuck? If we have all these desires and we're forced to act according to them, are we not stuck? So Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan poses this question. That then what is the point of all of these different sastric regulations to try to regulate our sense enjoyment and elevate us towards bhakti? What is the point if we are forced to act? Right? So now Krishna is going to answer this in the 34th verse. So, there are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the sense and their objects. To the senses and their objects. One should not come under control of such attachment and aversion, because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Somebody can read the purport loud?
Those who are in Krishna conscious are naturally reluctant to engage in material sense gratification, but those who are not in such consciousness should follow the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement, but one who follows the rules and regulation of the revealed scriptures doesn't become entangled by the sense objects. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is all allowed under the license of marriage ties. According to scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any woman other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationship with other women. These propensities are to be curbed, otherwise there will be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material body are allowed, but under the rules and regulations. And yet, we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations unattached to them, because practice of sense gratifications under regulations may also lead one to go astray, as much as there is always the chance of an accident, even on the royal roads. Although they may be very carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger even on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. But attachment to Krishna consciousness or acting always in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kind of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness.
So, let's work a little bit backwards from the purport. As Srila Prabhupada has very wonderfully presented this verse. So the ultimate goal of detaching from our sense enjoyments is for what? What is the ultimate goal? To be attached to Krishna. Right? And what is our relationship with Krishna? Loving relationship. And what is our position in relation to Krishna?
Servant.
We are servant. Eternally servant. So, now, how do material sense desires either go along with attachment to Krishna or go in conflict with Krishna?
Go along.
How?
So whatever you do is connected with Krishna.
But if I'm trying to enjoy my material senses, is that in opposition of my Krishna consciousness?
Yeah.
Why?
If it is without Krishna consciousness.
Without Krishna
The
consciousness.
sense enjoyment without Krishna consciousness is not.
Why?
He is the owner of the whole world and he is the ultimate enjoyer of the senses.
If he is the ultimate owner, and I am trying to enjoy in a material sense desire way, what am I trying to do?
Thief.
No, we are trying to satisfy our body, not.
I am trying to enjoy separate from Krishna. If someone comes into your house and starts to enjoy your TV and sofa and kitchen facilities separate from you, what is the result of those activities? You go away. I'm enjoying. Don't bother me. We laugh. It's foolish, right? Well, we have come into Krishna's house, this material world, and if we try to just satisfy our senses independent of Krishna, forgetting Krishna, that is like walking into someone's home and trying to enjoy their facilities separate from them. But someone who has really nice facilities, if we enjoy with them, what happens? Very nice experience. We never become fearful of being kicked out. We don't become fearful of repercussions. Maybe more supplies will come when the supplies are finished. Right? So, whenever we are trying to satisfy our senses, it's in direct opposition of our Krishna consciousness. Because it means I want to go to a movie, I want to go to the intoxication place, I want to do all this separate from Krishna. I want to enjoy independent, which cannot be done independent. But when one tries to, one has to then suffer the consequences. Right? So the point of detachment from material sense enjoyment is to come to Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada opens this purport by saying those who are Krishna conscious, they naturally have no desire to satisfy their own senses. Why? Because when they please Krishna's senses, they automatically get so much enjoyment, more so than they ever could have by trying to enjoy on their own. One's senses and experience become so fulfilled as they purify by practice of devotional service that by pleasing the Lord's senses, one experiences incalculable happiness and transcendental bliss. And Krishna says this throughout Bhagavad Gita. One experiences this incalculable happiness. One performs this devotional service very joyfully. Why? Because by rendering devotional service, one obtains great happiness. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. This Prasanatma becomes fully joyful. But as soon as we try to enjoy our own senses, independent of Krishna, we end up in this cycle of happiness, distress, anxiety, fear, envy, greed. All these things start to manifest. Right? So, the end conclusion is that by coming to Krishna consciousness, one automatically detaches. Prabhupada is bringing us to the point of coming to bhakti. When one comes to bhakti, one automatically detaches from all the material desires by the process of attaching to Krishna. Let me say that again. It's a one-step process. By attaching to Krishna, one automatically loses all of the material sense desires. But this step-by-step process that Krishna is explaining in this part of the Bhagavad Gita is a process where one progresses, where one has to detach first. But the problem with detaching is we want something else first. I'll not give up what's in my hand unless I get something else that's better first. If I have a handful of sand in my hand and there's a diamond on the ground, by picking up the diamond, I automatically let go of all the sand. By the singular process of picking up Krishna consciousness, I automatically let go of all of my material sense desires. So this is the point Prabhupada is making at the end of this purport. That to come free from your material sense desires, what should we do? Take to Krishna consciousness. By experiencing the bliss and happiness of devotional life, one will become detached. Now let's work back to the beginning of the purport. So the end is this. Krishna consciousness, one becomes naturally free from all of our material desires. So if we are not yet free of our material desires, what should we do?
Do more devotional service.
More devotional service. More chanting. More reading. More service. More seeing the deities of the temple. More eating prasadam. Whatever it is. How many of us cannot eat more prasadam? No? Of course. That will purify us. Whatever we have, do more devotional service. And naturally, these material attachments will go away. Why should we rid ourselves of material attachments? Because they ruin our endeavor for perfection. Who says that? The all-knowing Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not the minor-knowing self. The all-knowing Lord, who has a complete perspective, says you will be ruined in your endeavor for perfection. Okay, now this attachment and aversion. As we have moved through the material world, we develop attachments and aversions. Right? I like this. I don't like that. I love this. I hate that. I like this car. I hate that car. I like this movie. I don't like that movie. I like this actor. I don't like that actor. I like this politician. I don't like that politician. I like this city. I don't like that city. Always. Right? How that developed. How this attachment aversion developed.
Continuously seeing them, watching them.
Yeah. Our senses being engaged in all of their objects. Right? We develop different tastes and activities, right? So, the lowest level of sense enjoyment. So Krishna is speaking about some different levels of sense enjoyment. Right? And Prabhupada gives a very nice, detailed explanation in the purport. So the lowest level of sense enjoyment is what? Lowest level according to scripture.
Sex with illicit sex.
That is the activity, but broadly saying, the lowest level of sense enjoyment is when one does whatever they want. Unregulated sense enjoyment. I want to watch this, I will watch it. I want to eat this, I will eat. I want to perform this activity, I will do it. I want to commit some crime, I'll do it. Right? According to the desires of the mind, according to the attachments and aversion, I will do and not do so many activities. So what is my guiding principle in what I will do? What is the guiding force?
Mind.
The mind. Whatever the mind dictates to do, I'll do. Right? And what happens when we act such way? Bliss and happiness?
You detach from Krishna.
Yeah. And what's the result of doing unregulated sense enjoyment?
Punishment.
Why punishment? That seems unfair.
If we go against the city rules, we will be punished. Similarly, if you go against the laws of God, definitely will be punished in this life or next life.
Yeah. If I live in the city of Troy, Michigan, am I free to do whatever I want? If I want to play my music so loud, I want to do it. Am I free? No. Police will come and issue a noise violation ticket. If you want to drive your vehicle at a certain speed on the roads based on your desire, are you free to do it? No, you must abide by the rules. Well, these are man's laws. Ultimately, whose laws do we have to answer to? God's laws. Man may say it's okay to do X, Y, Z. But ultimately, we must inquire, what are God's laws? Because He is the ultimate creator. Troy did not create this. They are temporarily claiming possession of this land. Right? So this unregulated sense enjoyment leads to disaster. It is a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. Because by doing so, one will become mired in all of these pursuits, chasing after, sex life and intoxication, gambling, eating meat, these 4 regulative principles, constantly chasing how I can do more, eat nicely, sleep nicely, mate nicely, defend nicely. This animal propensity. And we chase it over. Well, if we're chasing that, how then will come to see Krishna? It is a complete stumbling block. It is an opposite direction. We are going this way and Krishna is this way. It doesn't work. So unregulated sense enjoyment is a recipe for disaster. And it's a recipe we've been tasting for millions of lifetimes. We've been tasting the bitterness of it. What we're trying to convince is eventually that taste will become sweet. It's as foolish as eating a neem leaf and thinking eventually if I eat the whole tree's worth, it'll become sweet. We've been eating the whole tree of material activities. And not one fruit has been sweet. But we think the next one will be. So this is that. So if we're not going to do unregulated sense enjoyment, okay, I won't do unregulated. What is my next option for sense enjoyment? Regulated sense enjoyment. And what is regulated sense enjoyment? If the city of Troy says it's okay to consume flesh we can eat, is that regulated? Regulated according to who? According to Krishna. So Krishna has given some injunctions. What are these called? Anybody remember? The karma kanda, sacrifices. If you want to enjoy material pleasures, beautiful bodies, celestial airplanes, wonderful music, long lives, beautiful garden, all, both in the heavenly planet, you want to enjoy, you must still do yajna. You must still sacrifice. And you can enjoy in this regulated way. Prabhupada gives the examples of sex life and marriage as a regulated means. Now, one may ask, why Krishna gave this? Well, before we go there, so is this the means of our perfection? This regulated sense enjoyment? Yes, no, maybe so. Don't know? Don't know. So, what is the benefit of regulated sense enjoyment?
We will not get punished.
We will not get this sinful activities. What is the drawback of regulated sense enjoyment?
Still we are entangled into the material things and it will be a hurdle for us to reach Krishna.
So we remain entangled in this bodily conception. Maybe a nicer body, maybe a fancier body, but still birth, death, old age, disease exists. So I'm making an A-class jail cell. Right? So, why Krishna gave these sacrifices, this regulated sense enjoyment? Is that what he wanted us to do, wants us to do? What does he want us to do? He just said it in the 30th verse. What does he want us to do?
Do it with me.
Do it for him. Surrender. Is regulated sense enjoyment surrendering to Krishna? It may help. How may it help?
By understanding the process of regulated sense enjoyment.
But why you said may help instead of it will help? What's the possibility?
He may lost in the sense enjoyment, the continuous process of sense enjoyment.
He may get lost in the process of continued sense enjoyment. And in which case, what can happen?
Attaching to the result.
Well, either way, you're attached to the result. Regulated sense enjoyment, you're attached to the result. I want this result, so I'm going to do some sacrifice. It's full attachment. This is not Nishkam Karma Yoga. This is I want to. But Krishna is saying that, and Prabhupada's explaining in the purport, that the danger is one may not progress forward to, what's the end goal? Bhakti, Krishna consciousness. If one goes from unregulated sense enjoyment to now, okay, I'm going to regulate, there's every possibility that after some time, what will happen? One will fall back to unregulated sense enjoyment again. We may stay disciplined for some time. If we don't continue progressing towards surrender to Krishna, we may fall back. So ultimately, Krishna is saying one should not even be attached to these regulated sense enjoyment. Prabhupada is saying one should not rely on such concessions as a means of perfection. I'm not quoting exactly what he said. We should not rely upon the control of such allowances, is what Prabhupada specifically says. Why we should not rely upon those? Regulated sense enjoyment? Because he says, even on the royal road, what is it? Chance of accident. Just because the roads are paved a little bit nicer on the regulated sense enjoyment path, it doesn't mean one is free from chance of dangerous accidents. And what is the accident on the path of self-realization? We fall off. We fall off. We stop. So this progressive stage of going from unregulated sense enjoyment to regulated sense enjoyment to karma yoga, to jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, buddhi yoga, is that we may stumble on the path. So Krishna and Prabhupada specifically, where should we start our process? At the end. Just bhakti. Now, how can we start at the end? We have no qualification. We have no purity. We have no knowledge. I cannot enter school at the PhD level. I must go through first grade, second grade, third grade, college, undergraduate, graduate, then PhD will come. That is true in material world. But in spiritual life, Krishna says, no. No matter how unqualified you are, even if you are a dog eater, you may take to bhakti. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, who is bringing Krishna's pure message to us, we have a chance to start at the end point, which is devotional service. It is the one-step process to become free from all of our desires. And we are protected from these stumbling blocks. This attachment and aversion. I want this, I hate this, I want this, I don't like this. They can ultimately lead us astray. Because as soon as I want to enjoy my material senses, I am directly saying I don't want to enjoy with Krishna. I only have one of two choices. Either to serve Krishna's senses or to serve my own senses. Only one of two choices. Either I'm going to serve Maya or serve Krishna. We try to do both. That's a difficult position. So, Krishna is guiding us that these principles to regulate attachment and aversion, they are there. There's regulated sense enjoyment. But don't become attached to them, because they also are stumbling blocks. Just as there's danger on a golden road. And so Prabhupada is guiding us. Though these concessions, these allowances exist, we should work to get beyond them. And how are we ever going to overcome these sense desires? Prabhupada says, how long is this sense enjoyment propensity gone on? Is it recently, in the last 10 minutes? Last hour? 2 hours? How long is this sense enjoyment spirit gone on? Prabhupada says, the sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time. Why? As soon as we began to associate with the modes of material nature, these desires started developing. Everything we're seeing, hearing, tasting. And when did we start our association with material nature? For me, 42 years ago? Millions of lifetimes. Millions and millions and millions of years. This is not a recent problem. This is a long-term problem. So then what is the hope for us? Do we have any hope? Or is it hopeless to overcome these desires? It is guaranteed that if one takes to Krishna consciousness, one very quickly and easily will overcome all of these sense desires and obtain perfection of life. Krishna says, I am the swift deliverer of my devotee. Swift, he uses. He says in the 14th verse of 7th chapter, Daivi hesha guna mai mama maya duratya. that this Maya, this energy, which is his divine energy, one can easily cross beyond it. Maya mitam tarantite. One can easily cross beyond it. How? When one comes to devotional service. He uses the word easily. We can get over our material sense desires. If one surrenders to Krishna. So by the power of Krishna consciousness, one will be able to subdue and overcome the sense-enjoying spirit that's accumulated for millions of lifetimes. In just 3, 4, 5, 10 short years, you can undo what we've been collecting for millions of lifetimes. How powerful bhakti is. And it's such a simple process. By chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We obtain such wonderful purification. We are glorifying the Supreme Lord and His pleasure energies. We are connecting with Him. He is dancing upon our tongue. By eating Krishna Prasada, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, by association like this, one can overcome these desires. But it takes some determination. Like walking through a little bit of snow, putting on a heavy jacket and hat. Is it that difficult? No. There will be obstacles in our way. But if we remain determined and fixed, we'll easily overcome them. So, Krishna says in the next verse that it's better one should do their duty than try to do someone else's. Because we have this nature. So stick to our duty. But ultimately our duty, we should transcend to our spiritual duties. We have material duties. But when we come to spiritual duties, as ordained by Sadhu and Shastra and Guru, Guru will give duties of how one can achieve perfection in this path of self-realization. So the last section of this Bhagavad Gita we'll discuss in the coming weeks is a question posed by Arjuna, which is a brilliant question. He says, Krishna, you've been saying all this stuff. It makes so much logical sense. Why would anyone do this? If they attach to this sense enjoyment, they're going to become bound by the activities and they'll be shackled with chains and being stuck in birth, death, old age, disease. And if they don't, they'll achieve perfection of life and bliss and happiness. It's so obvious. But Arjuna asks, Arjuna said, O descendant of Vishnu, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? We know all this, but still I can't shake my hand of it. Why? Arjuna is asking. So that is what we'll discuss next week. Okay. Any comments or questions?
So, Prabhu, what does self-realization mean?
Oh, nice. So what is the meaning of self-realization? So let's take each word. Self means to know, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Well, who am I? Who are you? You're not Kaushik? Huh?
I don't know how to answer.
Mataji said spirit soul.
She said spirit soul. And you said, I don't know. Well, many of us don't know. So first we have to know, who am I? Am I a male person of Indian descent? Of this height, this color eyes? Is that who I am? Will I be that 100 years from now? What was I 100 years ago? Don't know. So then I must not be Indian. I must not be male. Because that's temporary. What am I? If I can't answer what I was 100 years from now, what I will be 100 years ago, so clearly not I'm male, I'm not Indian, and I'm not brown-eyed. So what am I? I am spirit soul. I am spirit soul. This is my body. This is my hand. Not I hand. This is my hand. This is my head, my shoulders, my legs, my torso, my body. Who's the my? I say my intelligence. I lost my mind. Not I mind. Not I intelligence. My. Who is the my? Spirit soul. So self-realization means to understand that I am spirit soul, and then know where that spirit soul came from and what is its constitutional activity, meaning what is its eternal function, role, duty. It's Sanatana Dharma. So the soul comes from Krishna. Krishna says, Mamayivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. All the living entities are my eternal fragmental parts. Aham bija prataha pita. I am the seed-giving father. So, when I know I am spirit soul, I am part and parcel of Krishna, and I have an eternal relationship of service to Krishna, then I have realized who I am. That is self-realization. But it is not simple just to say it. I am not this body, I am spirit soul. It means to actually act in that understanding. To live in that understanding. And when one has realized that they are spirit soul and then this is just the body, how their consciousness matures, Krishna will explain in the coming chapters that one lives within this body, considering it to be a city of 9 gates. Just like one lives in the city of Troy, right? But one doesn't think, I am Troy. They say, I'm a resident in Troy. Similarly, one who is self-realized doesn't think, I am this body. Thinks, I'm living in this body. I am a resident in this city of 9 gates. 2 eyes, 2 nose, 2 holes. There are 9 holes in the body. That's the example Krishna gives in the coming chapters. That's the conscious. I am just a resident, just like we think I am a resident of Troy. I am not Troy. When one self-realizes, I as spirit soul am just residing in this body. I am aloof to its activities. That's self-realization. Knowing that I am eternally connected to Krishna as his loving servant.
There are some people who say that I am a self-realized person.
Yeah.
So that means there are different ways to achieve that self-realization, or Krishna consciousness is one of the paths to achieve it.
There's only one self-realization. It is not that one of us is part and parcel of Krishna and someone else is part and parcel of something else. Every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So self-realization is one. There are many kids on Halloween who claim themselves to be doctors. Anyone can claim I'm self-realized. And everyone's free to that right. To claim. I can claim I'm an astronaut. I can claim that I am from Jupiter. Whether you believe it or not, or whether that's factually true or not, is another story. I can claim whatever I want. But the fact remains, every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So to be self-realized means to realize I am part and parcel of Krishna. And when we say realize, this is vigyan. It means to then act in that knowledge. Self-realization means that we act in that knowledge. Not just that I say I am part and parcel of Krishna, but then I act as if I am this body. That's not self-realized. Self-realized that one acts in that understanding. That if I say I'm a doctor, then I'm acting in the means of a doctor. Just to say I am a doctor and act like, an engineer doesn't make me then a doctor. So just to say I'm self-realized, one must act under that instruction, or that understanding. And what is the activity of a self-realized soul? What is the single activity of a self? Serve Krishna. Serve the whole. What is the single activity of my hand? My hand has one activity.
Serve the body.
Why? It's part of the body. What is the singular activity of a self-realized soul? To serve Krishna. There is no other function. There is no other function. There is no other function of my hand but to serve the body. So a self-realized person has only one action, and that is to serve Krishna. So if someone says they're self-realized, they can say it, but are they acting it? That is self-realization. That's Vigyan. Gyan is to have the knowledge. Vigyan is to live your life in that knowledge. Realized knowledge. So it's realized. It's okay? A long answer to your question.
No. One more. So you were saying we should also come out from regulated sense enjoyment. So okay, so that means that means it's only bhakti, right? Like for let's say I eat prasadam. It's a regulated sense enjoyment, but I eat to as much I want. That means I should not also do that.
Prasadam is not regulated sense enjoyment. Prasadam is bhakti.
Okay.
Prasadam is devotional service.
So then
regulated sense enjoyment is I want to acquire a good promotion in my job. So in the Vedas, there's some scriptures and some yagyas you can perform to get a promotion in your job. So I'll do that yagya. I want to live 1,000 years in the heavenly planets, one of the higher planets, and fly in celestial airplanes. So I do some yagya to obtain that. The goal is not to reach Krishna. The goal is to enhance my bodily experience. That's regulated sense enjoyment. Taking prasadam is bhakti. Going and singing in front of the Lord and dancing and watching dramas and different activities, that is bhakti. Going and pulling the Lord's chariot in Rath Yatra and enjoying so much bliss, that is bhakti. Going and smelling the flowers that have been offered to the Lord, that is bhakti. Seeing the beautiful decorations adorning the Supreme Lord, that is bhakti. Hearing the sweet bhajans and melodies of his pastimes and hearing the wonderful beats of the mridanga and kartal as they resonate in ears and vibrate the soul, that is bhakti. And by experiencing these higher tastes of happiness, all of a sudden, the pale tastes of seeing some person dance on a screen or eating some mundane foods will no longer be there. It's by experiencing the higher taste that one lets go of the lower tastes. So Krishna says, don't try just getting rid of all these is hard. Just add more devotional service. You experience more happiness. We should eat wonderful prasadam. Krishna eats so wonderfully, and whatever he eats, we can take as his remnants, as his mercy. That's not regulated. At some point later, you may want to regulate, but that's not so important now. Prabhupada said we should eat up to here. Why? So that we won't be tempted to eat anywhere else.
And also, Prabhu, like in connection to this, like in other discussions here, that I buy something for the purpose of serving Krishna. So is it also a regulated sense enjoyment? Like for example, I want to buy a 50-inch TV to see Krishna movies Krishna Katha. So is it still
No, it again, remember, regulated sense enjoyment means the goal is to enjoy my senses. So my goal in buying a 50-inch TV to see Krishna is devotional service. But now we have to make sure, are we rationalizing our activities, or are we being, if I'm buying a 50-inch TV so that I can project beautiful images of Krishna, invite my friends over and attract them to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is devotional service. Because you're pleasing Krishna by bringing some of his other lost children to him. Right? If I am buying a 50-inch TV so that I can see the wonderful movies of the Lord, so that my attraction for the Lord will increase, so that I may render service to him and ultimately surrender to his lotus feet, knowing it to be my ultimate shelter, then it is devotional service. If I'm saying I'm buying the TV, so the first thing I put on it will be a Krishna movie, and the next 99 things I put on it are Netflix movies from India, that is rationalized sense enjoyment. Any questions? Any other comments? So the best way to control and regulate and control our senses, avoid the attachment to aversion. These are stumbling blocks on the path of devotional service is chanting. You must take to this chanting every day, and it is the perfection of our life. So, yeah.
At last, what was the conclusion, Prabhu, for the regulated self-enjoyment? Is it good or bad?
Regulated sense enjoyment? It is dangerous.
Dangerous.
And it is better than unregulated. So regulated sense enjoyment is better than unregulated. Right? But it is dangerous. Because if one doesn't continue to progress by experiencing the enjoyments of the senses at the higher levels, there is danger that one may become addicted to those and not progress to ultimately pleasing Krishna's senses. So a devotee prays, don't give me any wealth. Don't give me a beautiful body. Don't give me any fame. Why? Because if I get some of those, I may be tempted to then experience those. So the regulated sense enjoyment is dangerous because one may fall back to unregulated, may become mired in this cycle of wanting more and more even regulated sense enjoyment, and one will not ever see Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The goal of regulated sense enjoyment is for one to progress. Like the goal of second grade school is not to keep you in second grade school or to fall back to first grade. The goal is to keep one moving to third, fourth, fifth, ultimately up to PhD. And what is the ultimate process? Yoginam api sarvesha madgate nantaratmana shraddhaban bhajate yomam samayuktatano matah. Krishna says, after explaining all these steps, bhakti, that is the ultimate. Some may say, oh no, I'm a karma yoga follower, that is ultimate. One may say, I'm jnana yoga. No, you're a bhakti. It doesn't matter what you or I think. It matters what Krishna thinks. And he has said, he has established all these systems. Even the regulated sense enjoyment comes from Krishna. They are contained within the Vedas. But he says that you should progress from. So the danger of that, though, is we may get trapped. So Krishna says, don't take the step-by-step process. If you're on the ground floor of a building, to go to the top, he's saying, don't take the stairs. Take the elevator. Because on the stairs, you may get tired along the way. You may look out the window halfway and say, oh, the view is nice here. What's the point of going further? We may get distracted. Instead, he says, take the elevator. I'll do the work, Krishna is saying. You just go in and push the top button. I will bring you up. What person would take the stairs when that type of promise is given? That is the process of bhakti. That is the elevator approach to perfection. So ultimately, he says we should abandon all of it. We should not be attached to these regulated sense enjoyments. If we need them as progressive steps, that's better than nothing. But ultimately, we should renounce even that. That's the conclusion of this verse. The conclusion of the entire Bhagavad Gita is one thing: surrender to Krishna. Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Mamekam. Give up everything and surrender to Krishna.
Easy. Here, practicing.
This is how it becomes easy to hear, hard to do. Do this, everything becomes easy. The more intently we chant, the more we'll purify, and the more we'll see things as they are. Surrender to Krishna, remember, that's our natural position. That is our eternal, natural, constitutional position. We are in an unnatural state. So while it says hard, remember, we were there. We have fallen here, and all we are trying to do is get back to where we were. We're not trying to develop something new. It is not like I'm trying to become a world-class cricket player. That's hard to do. Maybe I can never do. But obtaining pure love of Krishna and full surrender, that is sitting dormant within every one of our hearts. It's right there. All we have to do is awaken it. And how do we awaken it? Chanting. So yes, it seems hard. But if we apply the process that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave, it can easily be done. But we have to apply it. So have faith. Be confident. It will happen. It absolutely will happen. And if we're having struggles, put more effort in the chanting. And it will work. It will work. I always told one person this, they were having some conflict between husband and wife, and constantly husband. I'd heard this from someone else. I just copied it. I said, as soon as you're ready to fight, you both sit, stare at each other, chant one round of japa, and then if you want to fight afterwards, then you fight.
Who will tell to chant, Prabhu? Both are fighting. Who will remember us to chant? That is the hardest part.
You remember now. That's the rules. If you want to do something, sense enjoyment that you shouldn't do, just give yourself 5-minute break, put your hand in your bead bag, and chant one round. Yeah. Then if you still have desire, then...
This practically is happening in my house.
Yeah.
Morning time, I'll be busy with Shamanta. I want to ask some help, he'll be doing chanting. I can't do anything. This always happens in my house.
He'll feel like this. Yeah.
Yes. But it's true. When we are tempted by our material desires, immediately surrender to Krishna. Ask him for help. Start chanting. It'll help. Those thoughts will dissipate. Those desires in your most direst times. Try it. It works. We're all tempted. But lean on the power of our japa. It'll help. Okay? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Koti Vaishnava ki
Jai.
One thing, Prabhu. So we